Hey, good morning. Okay, we are we are ready for our morning uh, orientation for introduction to human rights. Okay, let me. Ooh, okay, let me make sure we are in our. Okay, we are ready to go. So I hope that everybody can see this. Let me minimize just in case I can see some comments. If you can see me and hear me, please let me know. Let me see. Okay. If you're in the room, please let me know by chat. This is my first time using the YouTube uh, portion of this, so that I'll make sure that in case you missed this session, that you can pick it up on YouTube. I'm not so sure. I see that we're live on. I see that we're live on Facebook, so I'm going to go ahead and continue. Okay, my name is Dr. Mustafa Ansari. I'm the chief uh, facilitator of the Afro-descendant nation, and I'm also the chancellor of the Afro-descendant Institute of Human Rights. I am a international lawyer. I from Chicago originally. I went to private school most of my life, went to private elementary school, private high school, even a private law school. And my expertise is international law. I've taught as a college professor, I taught government. So government is another, thank you, Brother Gregory, thank you. So government is another aspect of what I teach. So I teach government and also taught constitutional law and criminal law. So uh, what we are here today for is for orientation for our upcoming course, Introduction to Human Rights. Introduction to Human Rights uh, is a necessary precursor to several career opportunities that the course leads to. This is the introductory course. The course leads to a career or position as a human rights policy officer. And a human rights policy officer is an officer that's able to um, understand the community needs and able to answer questions from the community and be or the tribe, depending upon the configuration. And it allows also that officer to be able to conduct monitoring activities, monitoring the civil and human rights of the community, the police, the businesses, and the people, because our path is one toward self-determination. Self-determination is an international human right, and and so um, human rights are a step above, big step above civil rights. And the difference between human rights and civil rights is that human rights allow us to um, bring out our natural rights. And there's a difference between natural rights and civil rights. Natural rights is the thing that we don't really understand because we were captured people and we never have experienced the expression of our natural rights. Natural rights are those that come to us and come to all human beings by nature. The right to be free. This is our natural right. This is the natural right. It can't be given by government. This is a fundamental human right. Human rights is something that the government can't prohibit. The right to live. This is one of the big problems that we have right now, is the right to life. And not just with the police killings. And that's a byproduct of it. But our whole situation impedes upon our right to life. And it's something that we did not have fallen victim to by being under the colonial auspices of the United States. So we don't have the having been given the right to really live yet, and that's a fundamental right. When we talk about the right to life, we're talking about not only the right to continue breathing, but the right to have a quality of life. So because of all the enduring discriminations since we've been in this country, uh, we have been uh, inflicted with a war of attrition toward education, jobs, so on and so forth. And you know that whole schematic just as well as I do. So human rights, our natural rights, is a way that we can be able to exert our fundamental human rights. So most people, in fact, 99% of the people that talk to you about human rights have no idea of what human rights are. So if you have a pen and piece of paper, and I hope you do, I'm going to give you the definitions of human rights. And I'm going to give you an example so that you'll know what 99% of the population does not know, what really human rights are. So, so let's start with this definition, that human rights spring from our natural rights. And what I want you to do, this is, you always have homework or extra studies when you come to me as your professor, because there's a certain way to study law. And that's exactly what you will be learning in the classes, how to analyze situations, human rights situations, from the human rights policy officer who reports and monitors the community and informs the community, from that position all the way to a human rights police officer, which is another higher echelon position that we have to be able to ascend to, because as free people in a nation, we have the right to self-manage everything, self-manage the police, self-manage the waste and sewage, our streets, self-manage the curriculum for our children in schools. This is one of the natural rights that is a human right that we haven't been able to ascend to. Human rights allow us to be able to have the right of self-determination. The right of self-determination is a human right, and I'm going to give you an example so you know exactly what human rights are. We're going to start with the example of a child, because when you're born, you have certain birth rights. So human rights begin at birth, and every child. And let's look at the makeup of the United States. The classical racial makeup of the United States is us, Afro-descendants, Black people, Afro-Americans. And those are not all statuses, and we'll get into that. Afro-descendant is a status, but Black is not a status, it's a category, an assignment that we give to ourselves. African American, another, is not a legal category. It's an assignment that we have given to ourselves that doesn't carry much weight because it belongs to that portion of rights called minority, simple minority rights, which is what we have been exploited under. And we're going to talk about the difference between self-determination and simple minority rights. And so those are two categories. So if you have your pen and paper out, put self-determination on one side and minority rights, simple minority rights on the other side. If you don't have a pen and piece of paper, then in your mind, there's two categories that we're going to talk about today that's going to depict human rights. So put self-determination, that's one category that springs from our human rights. So put that in one side. And then simple minority rights, that's just the simple minority rights that every immigrant, refugee, anybody that comes to America has, and that's just the basic civil rights, the right to proceed in society without any undue influence or obstruction by the government. Simple minority rights, as opposed to on the other side of your ledger, self-determination, which is a multiple trillion-dollar status change. And that's on the other side, that's self-determination, because our communities are worth billions and trillions of dollars. That's on the self-determination side, because we have a right to the land on the self-determination side as Afro-descendants, because Afro-descendants is a legal status. So now you have Afro-descendant rights and simple minority rights. And now you have a child that's born into this situation, Afro-descendant child that's born into the situation. When we see our child in the hospital, he's first born, that child has rights, the right to natural rights. If you have your pen, natural rights are synonymous with human rights. And I'll give you that example. If you have your pen, I'm going to read, and I want you to put on your paper natural rights and legal rights. Natural rights are those that are not dependent on the laws or customs of any particular culture. So our natural rights are the rights of that child is not dependent upon the United States laws at all. It's based upon the universal law of being a human being, human right, the human right to that child to life, a human right for that child to choose his identity, at least his parents to choose at that point because it's underage, but the right to choose what that child has, which is given his rights to his parents until he's 18, has the right to an unfettered identity, to choose and to re-choose his identity, his or her identity. That's a human right. And I want you to really get that, because I know we have been taught differently, that we belong to the United States, and that's not true. At birth, you have the right to either choose to be a part of the United States or not to be part of the United States. These are the new rights that we're going to understand, so we'll be able to get ourselves out of this exploitative situation. That child and we have the right to choose our nationality. And we have the right to choose or re-choose our identity. We have the right to life. We have the right to express ourselves. We have the right to be free from harms by the government. These are natural human rights. And when they are violated, they cannot be subscripted by any court or denied by any court. And if they are, and this is the problem with the civil rights approach and our civil rights lawyer and us looking at ourselves just as a product of civil rights, is that when we get stultified, stopped from asserting our right to life because of a district attorney or judge dismissing a case against a murdered police officer, that's a violation of our human rights. So if I was a civil rights attorney, I would stop there. We lost in court and they've been gone free. But because I am an international lawyer, because I understand my human right to life, that even if a government violates that, its court system, I could bring that case and we can bring that case into an international court. And this is what Malcolm was talking about, is that we have to move to our human rights because we are stultified or stopped from exerting our human rights because of the fact, we had a question coming in from Sister Michelle, and I'll answer that, because we're stopped or stultified in our rights to obtain human rights by a racist judiciary. So In the course of Introduction to Human Rights, I'm going to explain the hierarchy of law between, because you have, and every human being has at birth, several citizenships. They have, that child has a city citizenship, state citizenship, federal citizenship, and this international citizenship that protects human rights. Let me go over that again. You do, I do, our child does have a couple of citizenships. Uh, uh, we have the city that we belong to. We have to obey its rules. So we're part of that city. We're resident of that city. We abide by the rules of municipalities. So that is a, a level. Then state level. We're under whatever state we're in, there's state laws. And there's the federal level, the federal government level. And then there's the international level. This is the level where we obtain human rights. And this is the reason why we have not been able to move out of this conundrum that we're in, because there is another level. Okay. In the all of the courts of the, we are in what we call the inter-American system. We are under the auspices of the Organization of American States. Put that on your paper and put inter-American system on your paper. If you don't have a paper, pin that into your memory, because there is another system that is above the American Supreme Court. In the inter-American system, in the Organization of American States, all of the states in its organization, from North America, all the states in North America, Canada and the United States, Central America, all the countries there, Mexico, Honduras, all the countries there in Central America, Panama, all the countries in Central, and then all of the countries in South America are under the auspices of the Organization of American States. And I know you haven't heard about that, because it is one of those things that the United States keeps from us so that we can't assert our rights. And because of the fact that many or most lawyers don't go to have an expertise in international law, they get stultified at a bad decision in the Supreme Court or in a state court and say, well, that's it, Trayvon Martin, Zimmerman, he got off. There's nothing else that we can do. No, we could sue the United States for the negligent protection of our human rights, because the United States has a state responsibility to protect all of its citizens. And so we're going to learn in this class, this is this basic class. This is how powerful human rights are. Just this basic class, this one basic class, you're going to learn your human rights. You're going to learn the hierarchy of law, which is basically what I explained between the city, state, federal, and the international law. So in the beginning class, you will come out of that class knowing more than probably 95 to 99% of the population. And that includes lawyers, because I'm telling you, and I'm a lawyer, most lawyers don't study human rights. And the pastors and the civil rights people and everybody who is just saying human rights really don't understand the power of human rights. They don't understand the economic ability to get ourselves out of this contraption, because they don't understand human rights. When we talk about, and I'll take the example of Detroit, because Detroit is a project that is now under auspices of human rights, because we had the citizens withdraw their national identity from, part of it anyway, from the United States as dual citizens, and become a member of their own Afro-descendant nation. That's their human right. Let's look at Detroit. Detroit's a burnt out city, ghettos. Let's look at your own neighborhood, or the neighborhoods in the urban areas. They look terrible. Glass, broken glass, winos, the whole thing, bad schools, all of this. So let's look at Detroit. It looks like that, and especially in a large part of our areas. However, Detroit is worth maybe $60 billion. They have a seaport, excuse me, a lake port, because they're on the Great Lakes, and they have a tunnel that leads to Detroit that Detroit owns. So when we went to the process, and we have a great brother with us named Ramsey Yunus. I don't know how, well, he has an educational background by sitting with some of the revolutionaries. When you go through the process of exerting self-determination over a territory, the territory's assets become yours. That's self-determination. That's your human right to identify yourself, re-identify yourself, form your nationality, and assume the um, the assets of the land. The city budget in Detroit is $2 billion a year. Now, I don't know if you know what $1 billion is, but it is a group of zeros. It is a huge amount of money. The city budget in Detroit has had $2 billion, and our neighborhoods look terrible. Same way in Chicago, St. Louis, all the areas, all of the areas that we live in are worth billions and billions of dollars, and as a conglomerate, trillions of dollars that we just leave on the table because we don't understand that we have a human right, especially now, since 2003, as Afro-descendants. In this beginning class, we're going to give you the understanding of this status, because it is part and parcel of the conventions that we're going to be teaching you. I'll be teaching you about four, and just in this particular beginning class, four main conventions. The convention on against torture, that deals with degrading degrading behavior. That deals with all of the humiliations from the police, the lockups, the police killings, excuse me. It all comes up under the Torture Convention. In the Declaration on Non-Self-Governing Territories, this is what freed the African Asian nations. And this is what Malcolm alluded to, because it was, this declaration came out in the 1960s. So I'm going to explain that declaration on non-self-governing territories, because it allows us to self-govern our territories. Huge difference between human rights and civil rights. Just this past week, God bless him, passed John Lewis. He was a civil rights advocate, one of the best, no doubt. Great, I looked up his voting record, great voting record. However, how great his voting record was, how great a person and sincere John Lewis was, he was following the wrong approach, because you can't obtain liberty by using civil rights, because that means that you are under the jurisdiction of the United States solely. Didn't get us too far. Desegregated the schools to a certain extent, but they resegregated. So the approach of civil rights can't get you land and can't obtain freedom of decision making, which we call self-determination. So when you hear self-determination, that means we're making decisions in Detroit. We are in the process of obtaining that $2 billion budget, putting that into the council's budget, because we have a right to state and federal funds as American citizens, because we have not given up our citizenship. We added on top of that our own citizenship. That's going to be taught. That is the convention. This is the most important convention, I think, you'll be learning just in this first class. It's a convention on civil and political rights. Under Article 3 gives us the unfettered right to self-determination, and the United States signed it in 1992. They just think that we are not going to be able, because of our conditions, slavery conditions, and our indoctrinations, to be able to utilize the international law of human rights to free ourselves. They also signed a declaration on reparations, but they didn't think that we would be able to ascend to the level of understanding our human rights to understand that we do not have to wait on Congress, who can't give us our human rights anyway because they're defending, to set up a study commission. That's ridiculous. That is another reason why we have been on this treadmill of trying to move ahead, since we're on the civil rights treadmill, we could just keep going around and doing the same thing, and it makes us look insane because we're doing the same exact things, voting for Caucasian people every 4 years. I even voting for a Black person who sits into the Congress or the House of Representatives as a minority person and can't get anything through. John Lewis can get anything through. He was a minority vote. And let me tell you about minority votes in a democratic country. They always lose. Why? Because the majority rules. So if you're a minority, you always lose. So this is really like when we really think about the difference between civil rights and human rights, we would discard civil rights right away. And so even though I appreciated the sincerity of John Lewis, his approach and Dr. King's approach, beginning approach, because Dr. King became a human rights advocate after the March on Washington, he realized that that the United States had to come up with sincere capital to repair the damages that occurred to us. So he was an early advocate of reparations. This is not taught just a kumbaya version of holding hands and walking off in the sunset with the Caucasians in the same bus and all of that, seated in the same bus. No, politics is a matter of who gets what. We're gonna learn that because we don't understand politics, believe me. Even people that you think really understand politics, they don't understand. It's a policy. Politics is who gets what. When I taught political science, I taught it for 4 years in the college. Every year, my students nominated me as who's who among American professors because my students, just like you will be my student, I taught the truth, the concepts and the truth and the distinguishments. And they appreciated that because of the fact that it's not given to us like it should be. For example, what you're going to learn in our Human Rights Institute is, because it's delivered by myself as a lead professor and because of the other professors' understanding, you will not be able to get at Harvard, and believe me, Columbia University, UCLA, you won't be able to get it with the same fervor, with the same understanding, with the same clarity, as we are explaining it to the conventions and the treaties and the international law to you, because it just won't be taught to you that way. In fact, right now, the only other professor in the whole United States that are teaching Afro-descendant rights is a professor in UCLA. And I wish I had his name written down for you, but you can look it up. You can just look up Afro-descendants in UCLA. He's teaching the rights of the Afro-descendants in Latin America to their natural rights to their land, to obtain land rights, to obtain this new status. But no professor other than myself and our professors are teaching the Afro-descendants' rights to human rights. Since 2003, and I'll explain that, we have been given the right to land, the authority over the land in which we occupy and have occupied for the last 400 years, since the onset of the colonial invasion of the United States. Since the colonial period, the Afro-descendants have been made to work, been deprived of their liberty, been deprived of their rights. And so because of that, the Inter-American System, remember the Inter-American System, all of its states in the Organization of American States have agreed to, in 2003, to give us this special status. Nobody has has informed you of that, except myself and the rest of our professors. But it is, and if you look up Afro-descendants, you'll see that it is a status that gives us the right to the land that we occupy and the right to make decisions over it. In the United States, that's worth billions and trillions of dollars because we occupy parts of New York, superpower, beautiful city, Detroit, Chicago, Baltimore. All we have to do, and this is the reason why we ask people to sign declarations, and this is an important part of government that you need to understand, that government comes by way of consent, because remember, as a child, your birthrights, you have a right to choose. That is your, choose your nationality, choose your identity, choose what governance that you're going to have over you. So those are your rights, those are your human rights. So just in this beginning class, and I'll explain to you why it's a beginning class and where you can go from here. But just in that beginning class, you will learn what are your concrete human rights and what remedies that you have, that we have to be able to support our human rights. There are, once we teach you the basic definitions of human rights, the right to expression, the right to identity, the right to nationality, the right to life. Those are the ones I can think of off the top, the right to travel. These are basic fundamental human rights that no government can prohibit. And if they do, then as a human rights policy officer, you have some understanding of that. The next level from this beginning class, there's a human rights police officer. In the areas in which we control, are about to control through autonomous zones. This is what we, excuse me, are defining as the areas in which we live in, that we'll rope around where we are the majority. In the United States, there's 1,200 majority cities that we are in control of because we are the majority population. We are a very powerful people, but yet to understand that, because our minds have been dumbed down by civil rights, that says that this is the only way we can prosecute politics, is by voting Democrat or Republican, without understanding that we can vote for our own national self and assume the powers that we give to the Democrats and Republicans. So this expression of human rights, you will learn in this first class. And so we have 9 different categories of things, of careers that you can ascend to, beginning with this first opening understanding of human rights. There's you have a pen, and they're on the website as well: human rights policy officer, human rights police, human rights monitor. Human rights monitor is a step up, because after this beginning class, there's 4 other classes in this module to become a human rights monitor. In human rights monitor, you'll learn human rights theory. You'll learn how to analyze human rights. I teach you how to analyze like a lawyer. And I don't want anybody to get big-headed, because I taught some students and they thought that because they understood more about human rights and international law than 99% of the lawyers, that they, you're not a lawyer at that point, but you are a very advanced person. You're a very advanced activist. You're a very advanced protector of our community. And that is the point of political science, is to, or should be the point of political science, even when you go to college, is to train you to be able to become in charge of your politics. That's what, when you become a political science, have a political science degree, the aim of that is so that you can assert the political behavior and structures and configurations of your community. Our political science degree holders have no clue about that. They're learning rote information that they don't understand how it pertains to them. That is another distinguishment between the advanced way that we teach you as opposed to just the rote cold way that you're taught in a college. Um, the Institute of Human Rights, how we've configured it, is as a boutique learning institute because we take you in, we help instruct you on the definitions of international law, of human rights. We teach you, we train you. You are with us depending upon your career choices, and they're all the way from human rights policy officer all the way to ambassador. There's the, again, human rights policy officer, human rights uh, uh, police officer, which means that you have understand the criminal law on arrest and the criminal law on the use of force. And you understand how to police in a civilian area rather than how we're being policed as if this was a military area. So you learn those things at the human rights police officer. The next level is human rights monitor, which you'll be able to articulate before a state legislature or a city legislature the transition from their government to our government and why it is bound and based upon our human rights of choice. You'll be able to articulate that in a city council. You'll be able to, human rights monitors are able to write. They're able to write reports. They're able to articulate before a city and state government to bring about the transition of power from the Republican Democratic power to our own native Afro-descendant power. So that is the human rights monitor. And that's not nearly the highest level. Next level is human rights defender. We train lawyers and we train very, very advanced political sciences and very, very sharp people to be a human rights defender. And Elena Porter is a human rights defender. Human rights defenders are almost synonymous with international lawyers, almost. Except lawyers have more skills in presentation and articulation, as well as writing reports and communications to the international courts. As a human rights defender, you'll be with us about 2 years to obtain that level of understanding. That along with that level, you can go several ways because again, this is out of our own national body, our own national creation. So out of that, you can also ascend to be a member of parliament. You'll be able to, upon a parliamentarian or a member of the provisional government, you will be able to transfer these billions and trillions of dollars worth of wealth back to our community in the form of programs, in the form of education, in the form, and this is reparations. This is called self-proactive reparations. Reparations is not something that you just sit back and hopefully that the Congress, the defendants, the former children of the slave owners who hold all of the gold, as all of a sudden do a come by and say, okay, now we're going to give you reparations. So thank you, Sister Elena. I'm having you on to explain some of the auspices of it. We need to fact check 5,000 and train. Now, yes, we need to have a lot of you guys trained because most of our community does not understand human rights nor reparations, nor they understand, especially this first step I'm giving you now, that the first step of reparations is the step that you take yourself, not waiting on Congress, the step that you take to identify yourself, to choose your nationality, to circle your assets concerning land and taking authority over it. The first step to reparation is something that we have to do ourselves. The civil rights people would never tell you this because they think that they always have to be dependent upon some Congress or some congressional body or some from white folks to give us reparation. That is not how this thing works. And this is why it hasn't worked. Uh, None of the reparations organizations, none of the people who call themselves reparations lawyers have a real clue. And this is why it hasn't happened. I've been butting heads with them for over 10 years. They banned me, kicked me out, whatever, because I gave them the international law and informed them that they couldn't go to the United States courts or their Congress to obtain reparations. And as you see, the fruit always is ripened, and you see it as time evolves. And as you see, we have not obtained reparations, don't even have a clue of what reparations really is, because we're on the wrong path. John Lewis on the wrong path. Dr. King, when he was early on the wrong path. Malcolm X on the correct path. Anytime you're on a path to, especially as a former captured person in this country, anytime you're on a path to moving yourself out of that captivity, you're on the right path. But if you're just trying to advance in that system, then you're on the wrong path. And you see why it hasn't worked. Even the people that we elect in office as Black people that we think would be serving in our best interest, because of them trying to curry favor with their other colleagues, white colleagues, and different and just moving for themselves. You see, we have not moved very far. This is the reason. This is the reason that we and I founded the Institute of Human Rights, because it allows us to exert our human rights. It allows us to be. This is really one of the questions. It goes back down to the ancient Shakespearean question, to be or not to be. We have to be. We have to be ourselves. And ourselves, what has been taking place so far is that in the year 2000, Afro-descendants from all over the Americas, North, Central, and South America, met in this country called Uruguay. And in this country called Uruguay, we had to make a decision as to what name are we going to use to identify all of ourselves, from Brazil, from Peru, to Central America, to the Caribbean. What are we going to call our collective family? And it was them, not I, who chose the name Afro-descendants. And it was their effort, not mine, who allowed, who moved this through the Organization of American States and got signatures that allows us to have land rights as well as the authority over that land. Let me explain to you about what that dynamic does for us and what you'll be learning just in this beginning class. And you're not going to learn it in depth, because the second part of this module that leads to you being a human rights policy officer, police officer, ambassador, parliamentarian, human rights defender, that knowledge base, the second portion of that module, that next class we'll be talking about after this introduction, we'll be talking about, we'll go into self-determination. We'll go into 3 conventions. We're going to go into indigenous rights, because I haven't given you that. We are indigenous as well. We have indigenous attachments to the land. Civil rights people will never tell you that, because they don't know. Or if they don't know, they haven't concluded or drawn the right conclusions. But what we have found, this is just historical knowledge, because international lawyers, as well as defenders and monitors, they base their conclusions on proof. If you can't prove it, you can't say it. You have to have proof. You can't say anything that you can't prove. And that's just a concept of my training that I'll be relaying on to you. Don't say it unless you can prove it. We can prove that we are indigenous to this country. because of the fact that we have 57 different types of evidence. We go all the way from artifactual evidence, which is like things that we find that we can test radiocarbon on. There may be plates, there may be pipes, there may be different um, different things that we can identify. These are artifacts all the way up to the best evidence, which is the actual people. We have covered or uncovered, the scientists did, the bones of the most ancient America. And when they went and they found these bones in Brazil, and they had to go down 13 stories. And imagine a 13-story building. There are 13 stories under the ground, and the ground contains the historical record of mankind. It's better than books, because each layer of the earth gives you an idea from what you find in those layers as to what the people, who the people were, what did they do, what did they eat, how did they dress, what were their customs. So 13 stories under the ground and near the Brazil airport, they found 13 skeletons, and one of the top 10 skeleton that they call this find is Lucia, after named after the first human being in Africa 4 million years, humanoid 4 million years ago. In Brazil, 13,000 years ago, there was 13 people gone on to a clan that fell into a gorge, and now we have uncovered their bones. When the scientists uncovered their bones, a radio carbon dated the bones to find out the age of the bones, and found out that they were the oldest bones in America, Lucia. And you spell that if you have your notes. You should have your notes every time you come to a class with your professor. You have to have your notes. And I'll let in our next orientation, Ms. Porter, who's now one of our professors, explain to you. I'm not difficult. How precise I want you to be. How precise I want you to have the technique of how to take your notes, so that you'll understand what is being said. Because everything that I say is worth billions of dollars and trillions of dollars if we take it to heart. Again, everything that you'll be learning, everything I'm telling you is worth billions and trillions of dollars. Detroit, as burned out as it is worth about $60 billion and worth $2 billion a year in the city budget. So when we take that over, that is billions of dollars. And when we take over by our understanding of our nationality, our right to choose our nationality and identity, we come into self-repair of trillions of dollars. In fact, the United States doesn't, and Congress don't have to give us a dime, because we can self-repair up to trillions of dollars right now. Internet right now, by declaring that we are assuming our rightful identity as Afro-descendants. And we are declaring our right to self-determination. Just those choices that are our human rights to choose gives us, because we're in a superpower, the probable assets of trillions of dollars, because we live in this superpower. But we're sleeping on it because we have bad education. We have a lack of understanding because of that as to our true identity, as to who we are. So that's very important. So this beginning class, and I'm only going to keep you, and I always tell you, I'm only going to keep you about 1 hour, because what I teach and how we teach it is so power-packed. I want your full concentration and focus and understanding on what is being said. So I don't want to tax you beyond an hour. We have about 10 minutes left. And I'm going to answer, I'm going to reserve about 2 minutes to answer questions that have been 4 to 3 minutes that have been forwarded to me by Sister Michelle Lee and my sister Elena Porter to me. And if you have any other questions, let me know, because I'll reserve about, I say 4 minutes if there's more questions at the end of this morning's orientation to be able to answer those questions. So when you are enrolled in the Afro-Descendant Institute of Human Rights, you are on a fast-paced track to be able to help your community and help yourself, because we're going into a phase now where we can pay, in fact, the first 200 to 500 of our students that get through our course and become a human rights policy officer, human rights police officer, human rights defender, human rights monitor, ambassador, or parliamentarian, will have a salary, because again, when we assume the jurisdiction over the city budgets by turning them into tribal zone, autonomous zones, take the budget with us. So now we can pay our own professionals. And you guys will be trained to be the top professionals in our neighborhood because of the fact that you have the superior understanding of how to obtain power. Politics, again, is who gets what. What you'll be learning at the Institute of Human Rights is the ability to take power by utilizing the international covenants, the conventions. We're going to talk about the conventions. We're going to teach you on how to, because that's what the body of law, the treaties between the United States and other countries, are treaties between any two countries. A treaty is an agreement between two countries. Multi-state treaty, multiple treaties are states that's signed by multiple countries. So you're going to learn what a treaty is, what conventions are, and you're going to learn in the next course, you'll learn of the different international forums that you can go into, because in this work, once you become a human rights monitor, you'll be suitable for a variety of occupations. You can work in the United Nations. You can work even as a human rights monitor. You can have your own, in the city, whatever city that you're in, you can have your own human rights organization. That's the extent of the depth of what you'll be learning, because this is really advanced political science. Remember, I told you I was a political science professor. I taught rudimentary information. But I taught it in an exciting way, but I taught rudimentary information. Government, I taught about the Constitution. I taught about the structure of government, the Senate, the House of Representatives. I taught that. This is more advanced than that, even though you'll have to understand the structure of government, because I assume that you know basically the structure of government, how it runs, how laws are passed, and that sort of thing. Most of you do. We'll be building on that so that you'll be able to structure your own governments and create your own laws, your own councils, so that you can move into the area of human rights. You'll be able to assert your human rights. That is the whole concept of the goal, the mission of the Institute, is for you to understand your human rights. What I just told you this morning is more than 95 to 99% of the people who mention the name human rights, they don't know. What I taught you just this morning, just this simple time that we've been together, we've only been together 54 minutes. You have an understanding, or should have an understanding, that you have a status, Afro-descendant status. Look up Afro-descendant, international law Afro-descendant. And And that status gives you a right to authority over the land. I taught you your fundamental human rights that no government can take away from you. And if they do take it away from you, I also informed you of how that there are superior laws in which there are superior courts that you can go to sue the government. In fact, all we do as international lawyers is sue governments. That's our defender. So you learned that. That is, believe me, a lot more than the average person who has not been with me 54 minutes, 55 minutes now would know about. So human rights are natural rights that you obtain at birth. These are the rights that we want to get back to: the right to choose our identity, right to choose our nationality, the right to govern our society, all the aspects of society. I taught you the beginning step of reparation. It's not something that somebody can give you. It's something that we must do for ourselves. And this is something that we haven't learned to do because civil rights teaches us to be dependent on that other person to do something that we should do for ourselves. So I informed you about reparations. Now you know more than 99% of the people who say we want reparations, or reparations organizations that say we're moving toward reparation. You know more than them right now. You've been with me 56 minutes. Okay. So I want you to enroll in this class. I want 500 students. I know, and Sister Lane said we need 5,000, but and this is true. But 500 students would allow you to be powerful and would ensure that you have monetary worth, and that this increases your education no matter where you're going to utilize it in public service, in public government service, because it's advances a vast level of education. 500 people would allow us to make a significant change. 100 people would allow us to make a significant change because of the fact that this information that we've given you is so powerful. This first class is usually $695. We reduced it all the way down to $100 because we want you to be able to enter into the class, be able to understand the power of human rights, the distinguishments between human rights and civil rights, and be able to make a better life. Sister Michelle, now we're into the question and answer series. So if you have any other questions, make sure you post us. I'll know. She says, where does equal rights fit into this? Very much so, because there is a huge difference between equal opportunity and equality of opportunity. We've been fed equal opportunity by, and this means that we are given the equal opportunity supposedly now to succeed in education, whatever, employment, housing. But you see, because of the customary understanding of white people, we never obtain our equal rights. Equality of opportunity is what we are after, which is different than equal opportunity. Equality of opportunity means that we're moving to make things level ourselves, to have us the equality, give us the equality to obtain the opportunities that we should have and should flow to us naturally. So there's a huge difference between something that somebody can give you and something that you can obtain yourself. This is called self-determination. And this is another aspect of what you'll be learning in your first course. So that is the best. Now this will be on YouTube, and I'll find out exactly where it's going to be on YouTube, and we are going to go from there. The class starts September 1. Make sure you get your seat early, because after 100 seats, we have to pay for more seats. I think the next level up is 300 seats. No problem. We want to fill all the seats. We want you to see now, especially when times are changing, the technology is changing times. This virus has changed time. You're going to be shook out of a lot of your jobs. This is something that you can do to make sure that we and you as a person, as a people, can move to the next level with this advanced piece of knowledge to make sure that you are prepared, because as you see, I'm a demanding teacher. I'm a commanding teacher because I want you to be your best, because everything that we do is worth billions and trillions of dollars. We have that possibility because we live in a superpower. So I thank you for attending this session. I hope to see you and hope to see your applications for this session. We are moving to a very powerful level. There's going to be a big announcement in the next 3 weeks, and you'll see even more how we're moving into this period of self-determination and self-assertion. So again, I thank you for allowing me to come into your home this Sunday morning, and looking forward to seeing you in class. Thank you so much for your attendance.